Ready.
Hit up that live stream.
Hope peeps enjoy our new look and feel.
Yeah. I know I do. Are you sharing on the social medias?
I will.
Okay.
We
If, I was
are.
gonna say if you weren't, then I could. But let me pop on over to Twitch. Did you see that we're set? I like how Dan set us to auto host.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that was nice of him.
Now that she's an affiliate or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking into the things that you need to do that, but
Oh.
like the category, the criteria that you need to meet.
Yeah.
Look at that.
What?
The Periscope thing is working.
It is? Let me go to Twitter.
It looks so nice on Twitch. Less plain for sure. Because I didn't like the old one. It was so plain. Because I just threw that together in like 5 minutes.
Met him when he was in the 6th grade, and he had on some leather deck shoes. Took one drop step, went up and grabbed the rim with, "Uh-oh, we got something here."
Apparently you can't mute advertisements anymore.
Look over to the right, Green Bay against the Packers. Oh, man. When he made the turn.
What current NFL
I see
player will be
it.
the fourth member of Migos?
Julio.
You weren't following Industry 4.0? Whoa.
Apparently not.
What current NFL
I
player
see
will be
it.
the
Because I just got a notification that
Julio.
you did. You weren't following Industry 4.0? Whoa.
Apparently.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Live everywhere. Well, just 3 things: Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope.
Well, I'm watching this on Periscope RN. But I'm ready to go whenever you are.
Yep. I'm just cleaning up. I'm opening the show.
Hey, I finally flipped my profile picture to face into my lower third instead of facing away.
Is the order fine that you have in the show notes?
I mean, yeah, I don't have a problem with that order.
No break, just go all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go. Like, there's not a lot to talk about for some of these. Most of it's just like, hey, this happened. So I'm not anticipating, like, for example, spending a super long time on the Boeing tweet because it's literally just a tweet.
You hear that?
Hear what?
Okay, never mind then. Like a sound, like a rattling sound.
No.
I think some ice just fell off the roof.
That's
I
weird.
can hear it, but
I can't hear it.
okay, good. As long as you can't hear it, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I do have the gate up on voice meter, so should help.
I guess I'll close out Periscope because my CPU is at 80%.
What? You're not even streaming?
Well, it keeps going between like 30 and 80. Like,
I'm at 99 at the moment.
You're at 99?
Yes. Google Chrome alone is taking up 50. Come on, Chrome.
Jeez.
Just stop. Okay, now we're good. 85. All right, we're better. Doing better now.
Yeah.
Apparently, I can't have anything else other than Hangouts open in Chrome. Thanks, Chrome.
Oh man.
Thanks, Google. So I can't watch now that if our stream goes down. Oh, that's good.
I always keep it open.
Okay.
I'll post it on Facebook.
Oh, yes. Please do.
I'm just gonna post the Twitch one
Okay.
Actually, just kidding. I'm gonna post all three. Or no, I'm not gonna post just YouTube and Twitch.
No love for Periscope.
Just kidding. Am I just kidding? Huh?
I was playing a lot with all the Adobe tools last night because I was doing updates to the look and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And every time I launch an Adobe app like Lightroom or Photoshop, I got a pop-up that said, Adobe's Crash Reporter has crashed. Every time. I found it real hilarious. I took a screenshot.
You know you got problems when the Crash Reporter crashes.
It's like, Adobe's Crash Reporter has stopped working. Would you like to send this to Adobe?
Send the email to Adobe. The guy just looks at it and he's like, oh no. Do they have a crash reporter for their crash reporter?
They should.
I mean, that's obviously how you're getting your reports on that. I vote that we start.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Right.
I've been ready.
I'm excited. Let's go. I want to do Twitch gaming with us. Have like Industry 4.0 plays.
Mm-hmm.
And then just have us all play some kind of co-op game, or like we'll all play like Overwatch or something. I don't know.
Oh, I like that. That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm. Even though I'm absolutely terrible at Overwatch.
I never played,
Like,
so I don't.
I am actually hot garbage. It's great.
Okay. Ready when you are.
I was born ready.
Then in 3, 2.
Welcome to Industry 4.0.
Welcome to i4o. This is just another two-man show for this week, but I'm joined by none other than Ervin. Good morning.
Good morning. Ready to
Still
get this
nursing
show.
that morning coffee and
Yes.
getting ready for some tech news. There's some interesting stuff that happened this week. Got a good bit of articles for us to talk about today, but most of it is just kind of little one-off exciting things. But we got some news about Amazon, some news about Bitcoin, and some additional information on Tesla and Qualcomm. But to jump straight into the first topic, Amazon has a new strategy for getting discounts on their live market. So this looks really promising, and it's another way that Amazon is kind of blurring the line between brick and mortar stores and online shopping experiences. So from how it looks like the longer you watch advertisements on Amazon product pages, the lower the price will get.
What?
And that's pretty interesting.
Oh man. So like, let's say for example, if you want something and you just keep looking at the Amazon page for that product, you're like, oh, should I get it? Should I not? And you just keep looking day in, day out. They will detect that, and then it'll just lower that price once you hit like a certain amount of time that you viewed it. So like, oh crap, it's nice and low now. I can buy it.
Yeah,
That's kind
and
of crazy.
The thing that's killer about this is it's going to be a patent. which means that if Amazon can get this through, then they'll be the only online retailer who can do this.
Yeah, just like they had the patent on the one-click buy button for a long time.
Yeah.
I think they still do.
For so long, and then it goes open to the public.
Yeah.
When you said what at first, I thought you were using your soundboard again. But
Nope, I was
was
not.
like, wait a second, threw me off.
No, apparently it's something I say a lot, but no, that was not the soundboard.
Okay.
But
because
this
apparently
is crazy
the
because I
difference for this.
Yeah, I do this a lot. This is dangerous. I do this a lot.
Yeah.
When I'm
online
looking at
shopping on Amazon.
No, not just looking at a page is like if I really want something, I like debating on should I get it or should I not. I look at that page a lot. I pull it up randomly on my phone, my computer, like, hey, has a price or like I don't know. I just keep reading reviews. I don't know. This is dangerous.
No, it is, but it could be good if you're on like, for example, Black Friday, and you see a deal come through, and then you're just like, oh, watch an ad, the deal gets even better. Unless that doesn't stack, but there's kind of minimal details on exactly the technicalities of the discounts, but the fact that Amazon is the only one who's going to be able to do this, and the fact that they have such a huge market control already means that this is going to be another huge step in the forward direction for Amazon in terms of raising value and bringing in revenue, because these guys have been amazing with Whole Foods being acquired and now this patent. They're going to be something for Walmart to really be careful with.
Does it say who covers like who's lowering the price? I mean, assuming Amazon themselves are lowering the prices, like who covers the difference? Is Amazon hitting that loss just to get that person to buy it, and then the retailer is still getting the full price that they the merchant is still getting the full? I'm
not sure.
Yeah, because this is just a patent filing, so it's not official yet. It hasn't been released, so it's nothing like that. But I'm very curious to see if Amazon's willing to eat that cost, that difference, just to get someone just to buy something.
I would guess that it comes out of Amazon's percentage of the sale, just like their cut of it, because they'd rather take a loss and get the sale than not take a loss. And then they can also make money on this ad revenue too.
Yeah.
So, but that's an interesting news with Amazon, and they have not stopped innovating since before we've been reporting on them. So, but speaking of innovating, Apple is going to be acquiring Shazam. So that's very interesting, especially with Spotify moving towards a public listing. So the deal is going to be announced on Monday. It could be changed, but some of these figures put it at around 400 million. So according to the article, though, the numbers are lower than the 1.02 billion valuation the company had in 2015. So it looks like Shazam itself isn't doing too great.
I mean, it's been kind of quiet. I mean, Shazam was huge when the initial smartphones launched. Like the iPhone was like one of the killer apps, right? To get, it was so cool. You just pull up the app and it would detect exactly what you were playing. But nowadays, I know the Google Assistant does it, built right in. The new Pixel phones automatically do it without having you even do anything. I'm curious.
And then there's also competitor apps like SoundHound and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm curious if they will integrate this. I don't know. Does Siri do music recognition now? If you ask her what's playing, I don't know. I don't use iPhones on a regular basis. I don't know.
Where's Kyle when you need him?
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
If it doesn't, maybe they're planning to integrate with this for Siri. I don't know. Honestly, I don't see why they bought this. I mean, Google developed their own, and it works just as well as SoundCloud, if not better.
It looks like further in the article, it says that Shazam integrates with other apps like Snapchat and Siri. So maybe when you ask Siri for the music, it just leverages Shazam. So
So now,
Which-
but yeah, if they bought them, they would probably more seamless integration.
They could just bake it into
Oh,
Siri. So maybe
yeah.
this is where they're going with this.
Hmm.
So
And then offer you a link to buy it or listen to it on Apple Music.
yeah, I could see that being linked in. It would be cool if they used that dedicated processor in the new iMacs to just have music displaying, like a music, kind of like how the Pixels do it on the phones,
Mhm.
but like do it on a monitor or something. That'd be kind of cool, but that's probably not going to happen. But this is just the early reporting on it. I'm assuming that we're going to see more news on the exact cost for the purchase on Monday, and we're going to see later information on like what exactly they're going to be integrating it in, which I'm assuming it'll be Apple Music and Siri and maybe a couple other services. So,
And also forgot, I'm reading this article now that I sort of knew this but forgot for this article that they also detect TV shows and film, not just music, which is very interesting. And
so you can say, like,
advertisements.
what show is this?
Yeah, and advertisements too. Like I've seen ads where like, "Hey, pull up Shazam and we'll give you this special it'll pull up this special link that'll let you do whatever during
cool.
ads on TV." I've seen those. I haven't actually used them because I don't use Shazam, but it's kind of
I haven't used it in a long time. I usually just relied on the incredibly inaccurate Google Assistant for a while, and now the lock screen on the Pixel 2. But yeah, interesting stuff. I'm curious to see where this goes, and I'm definitely going to be looking to talk more about this when it develops a little bit further.
Yeah, sure.
But that's not the only news in music. Looks like YouTube is going to be launching a new subscription for music in March. So there isn't a whole lot of information about it, but it looks like it's going to be kind of a fusion of, looks almost like a fusion of like YouTube Red and Google Play Music. I think we were talking about this a little bit before the show.
Yeah. Because we
but-
both use both of those current services
Right.
fairly actively, so we're familiar with the current offering. So I was like, when I saw these headlines, like they're launching a new service, like a third one. No, it's just that they want to rebrand. From what the rumors say, they want to rebrand everything under one umbrella. Is what it sounds like, which
Google
makes
doesn't have enough
sense.
services. They
Yes.
obviously need more.
So I think they should start getting better at consolidating their services, because right now they have, with one subscription, you get access to YouTube Red, you have access to YouTube Music, you have access to Google Play Music, and that's 3 different sources of music that you can play.
But according to this Bloomberg article, the new service is looking like it's going to be helping increase the record industry's revenue from YouTube. So it looks like they said the people who asked not to be identified discussing private talks look like they're from Warner Music Group. And they're also in talks with Sony Music and Universal Music and Merlin. So a bunch of independent labels. So
Nice.
it looks like that it's going to be just another push to generate revenue inside that market. And since music is so popular in YouTube itself, I know dozens of people who either have YouTube playlists on their own channel who just play music videos they like, or someone has a bunch of music videos they throw up during a party or something like that. And
for sure. Yeah, YouTube is, for a lot of my friends, it's their main source of music that they listen to. They're not willing to pay for another service. They are willing to deal with the ads that might pop up, but they just pull up music videos or have playlists during work or wherever in the background, and that's how they get their music. I was never that way, but I know a lot of people who are. Especially if you look at the younger crowd, for sure, YouTube is their main source for getting music.
And the new service, which they're internally referring to it as Remix, would include this is me reading straight from the article, would include a Spotify-like on-demand streaming and would incorporate elements from YouTube, such as video clips. So YouTube has reached out to artists to seek help in promoting the service, but they need to finish these deals before they can even do this. So there's going to be even talks with Vivo. I'm sure that anybody who's used YouTube for music videos has run into Vivo at one point or another. So it's And that Vivo is important to note that it is owned by Universal and Sony. So it looks like it'll be it looks like there's still a lot of development to go. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
curious
sure.
to see
But
where this goes also.
yeah, same. Since we both use
Mhm.
services.
Lots of deals.
Yeah.
Lots of deals. But to kind of jump a little bit off to another deal, Anheuser-Busch has purchased 40 electric Tesla rigs. So that's a pretty penny, especially considering each one of those semis requires a $20,000 deposit. So that's $800,000 in Tesla's bank account. I'm not sure how many cases of Bud Light that translates to for Budweiser, but
yeah, that's
awesome.
yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely awesome. I've heard a lot of stories and a lot of buzz about this company buying this many semis. There's also a story about Arnold Schwarzenegger getting one. He pre-ordered one. I'm curious.
I didn't see that.
You didn't see that?
No.
I found that hilarious. Yeah, he tweeted the confirmation page for the deposit. He's like, "Ooh, look,
God.
guys, look what I got."
Where's he even gonna park that?
I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. I think he drives a Hummer H1 right now in like LA. That was like the original military grade Hummer.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure he has plenty of parking space. But yeah, I've seen a lot of other companies. I saw one earlier about the same amount. 40 trucks were ordered. I forget the name of the company, but yeah, there's been fairly common, and I think trucking companies who use a lot of trucks to ship things all over the country are very interested in the savings that this potentially could offer them. And I don't think 40 trucks are that much for, let's say, for Budweiser's entire fleet of trucks, because they ship a lot of beer all over the country and the world. So I'm pretty sure they have, it's fairly insignificant, those 40 trucks, but they're just getting their toes wet at this point. They're very curious, and hopefully Elon delivers on time. I know he's not the best for that, but it should enter production in 2019. So once these trucks get delivered, hopefully all these companies that are pre-ordering them now will see the amount of reduction in the cost that it currently is for trucks to deliver goods to the destination.
And it looks like multiple companies are kind of doing this trial run of the trucks. So there's, for example, Walmart pre-ordered 15. JB Hunt has multiple trucks. Other companies like Ryder, DHL, and the Canadian chain Loblaw have started pre-ordering trucks. And I can't say Loblaw without immediately thinking of the Arrested Development Bob's Loblaw. But it looks like you're saying, since Tesla has not necessarily been known for meeting deadlines in the past, it makes sense for them to only buy so many, and see when they get these trucks, so that way they can see how well Tesla's logistics is going to be and how well their shipping and manufacturing is going to be by the time this is ready.
Also, the charging, right? The charging is the main key, right? That high-speed chargers that they were talking about, getting 400 miles in half an hour, that's going to be a key to all of this, right? If they can build those out throughout the country, as well as destinations where most of these trucks are going, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, they got to see because these were priced right around the cost of a standard brand new semi-truck.
Everybody when was like, wait, what? So the current price is Tesla has confirmed is around. They haven't set a specific price because, of course, that could change 2 years down the line. But it's going to be around $150,000. And people who are doing the math are saying with the current cost of batteries, that is literally impossible. So either the rumors are there's only one Tesla has made a significant breakthrough in terms of battery costs, and they're extrapolating that to 2019 to say at that point we know that we can make the batteries at these prices per watt hour, and that's how we can reach that price tag. If that's the case,
that's the whole point of the Gigafactory.
Yes, it is. So with all these assumptions that the Gigafactory will be in full production, built out fully to the size that they initially announced, and they can get those prices down, that's going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That would be awesome. And especially if they can get, like you're saying, the cost of batteries down. And I'm assuming there's going to be different options too. So you could tier out the truck and get different internals or different battery sizes depending on what they can actually get done going forward. But it's exciting to see that there's some interest behind this truck, and assuming all these tests go well, you might see like Mack and other truck companies scrambling to catch up with their tech. So I'm wondering if anybody else, like any large US truck maker, is going to come out with something, Hess truck as an electric semi or something.
Yeah, it could be very interesting. Just to a funny note, a current max out Model S costs more than $150,000.
Oh my God!
If you checked every single option, you got the biggest battery pack, highest performance. It's currently at like $156,000.
Oh my God!
So
buy a semi with that money,
huh? You could buy a semi.
With that money.
You could buy a semi with the money. So that's a lot of reduction in terms of battery cost, because currently someone did the math, and if they, with the current prices of batteries, I think just the cost of the battery came out to like $140,000
That's
to get to that 500-mile range, or even that 400-mile range, the lower end, or 300. I forget. There's two tiers.
Oh my God!
That's how much with the current price of batteries is.
Well, here's hoping that they're wrong. I mean, I'm always one for rooting for Elon Musk, but it's tough at times to root for him just because of how crazy things can get. And how he's, like I said, he's fashionably late to release dates. So, but we'll see how it goes. Switching over to another Elon Musk company, SpaceX, Boeing CEO tweeted, or they had mentioned that they were going to beat Elon Musk to Mars, and Elon Musk has accepted that challenge. So it looks like he's going to, and this is always good to see, like, because I think Elon has been transparent from the beginning that he's more for pushing the race forward itself than pushing his own financial interests. Like, this isn't a race for SpaceX. This is get somebody to Mars by a certain time. And if it comes through free market and competition, then more power to capitalism. But if he does it, then kudos to Elon Musk. He just gets another headline. So
I mean, that this is like, so that the tweet was, that Boeing CEO says that they'll beat SpaceX to Mars, and then Musk replied, do it. Because his like you mentioned, his thing is not to be the best, not to be the first, but to just do that kick someone to actually do it, not just talk about getting to Mars, right? His ultimate goal, the space exploration, the long name for SpaceX, if anybody listening didn't know what SpaceX stood for, it's called space exploration. That's their ultimate goal, is to get to Mars. But if someone wants to beat them to the punch, Elon's completely fine with that. The more people are putting money and research into it, the better for everyone in his mind. That goes the same for any competitors or quote-unquote Tesla killers that are coming out. He's fine. He's encouraging people to try to beat Tesla. And he's been very open about that too. And the same goes for SpaceX.
In fact, he's so fine, he opened up all of his patents for Tesla.
Yeah. So. He does. Making money and being the best car company or the SpaceX rocket company is not his goal. He is shooting towards that becoming the cheaper option for everybody if they want to launch things into space. But if someone wants to come along and beat him, he's more than happy to let them do that, which is great way to look at things, great way to go about it, not making everything a huge competition. And I don't know.
And they have apparently in 2019, Boeing is going to be launching with NASA a 36-story tall rocket, and I think the first mission is going to be a slingshot around the moon. While in tandem, Elon Musk and SpaceX are going to be overhauling their entire fleet. So they're going to be working on what they're calling an interplanetary transport system, codenamed BFR, the big effing rocket. So they're going to start building them in 2018.
Yeah. And
they're confident they can get a human to Mars in 5 years. So I want to, if someone beats them, then that's exciting for me.
Yeah. It's someone on Mars in our lifetime. That's pretty crazy.
Because the generation before us had the moon landing.
Yes.
And it would hopefully by 50 plus years from that point, humanity would have eventually gotten somebody to a different part of the solar system.
Yeah. Because after,
or even at least back to the moon.
Yeah. Pretty much after the space shuttle program ended, I don't know, people had been losing, interest in space travel or the funding for it, like the advancement. What's the next step, right? We got into the moon, but what we never really sent or had the fire or the encouragement to like go anywhere else. But now Elon Musk lit the fire under those rockets again.
And of course it's the market that's doing it, not any government entity, which is even more interesting.
Yes.
I mean, NASA doesn't exactly have a whole lot of funding either, so they've been
the funding has been cut significantly. So it's up to these private companies to do it.
But speaking of things that are untenable to do, Steam is ending support for Bitcoin officially. So they had allowed Bitcoin to be used in Steam, but Valve has no control over the amount of the fee, and because they have they've seen an increase in volatility with the value of Bitcoin, and I think all of us have if anybody's been keeping an eye on the market. They just crossed what 17,000 recently.
Just ridiculous.
So transaction fees that are charged by the customer have skyrocketed, topping out at close to a $20 a transaction, compared to roughly 20 cents when they initially enabled it. So since these fees are kind of skyrocketing, they have no control over this, and it's costing way too much to buy a game on Steam with Bitcoin.
Yeah, because you can, and also since the volatility, the price can change by a significant amount from the time that you press buy to the time that you actually checked out. So that could, because since Bitcoin has been fluctuating so much, like in one day, I saw a couple of days ago, it went up $1,000 in value in one day. Right. So if you're buying something on Steam, you press buy now, and then you go to, by the time you get to the checkout, of course, there's that high transaction fee that Matt talked about, but the price could have already fluctuated by that time, and you could be paying a lot more for a game.
Right. And they explain why surges like this can have an impact. So just to quote verbatim from the article, when checking out on Steam, a customer will transfer X amount of money for X amount of Bitcoin for the cost of the game, plus a Y amount of Bitcoin to cover the transaction fee charged by the network itself. This is the Bitcoin network. So the value of Bitcoin is only guaranteed for a certain period of time. So if the transaction doesn't complete within that window of time, then the amount of Bitcoin needed to cover the transaction can change. And having done a little bit of research on Bitcoin, that makes complete sense. So the amount can change, has been increasing recently to a point where it can be significantly different. And with anybody who's had a Coinbase account recently has probably gotten an email notification saying that transactions may take a longer period of time because of the increase of interest in the network and the influx of transactions. So that explains why this is becoming just impossible to track for fees, because a 20-cent fee a day ago now is $20. So, and I'm assuming that can only go up, especially now that Bitcoin has, since this article, increased about $4,000. So, and that this article came out, what, 4 days ago?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. And it's interesting to see, like, yeah, like, especially with the Steam sales, everyone says like how great Steam is and like how cheap the games are. And if you're going to go buy Rocket League for $20, for example, and then you're going to get hit with another $20 just to handle the transaction, you're not going to use Bitcoin. You're going to use PayPal or a credit card.
For sure.
It is what it is, and it goes to show just the volatility. I think that's the right way to say it, of the network. Volatility. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, but I think it's just untenable to support them as a payment option until they can figure something out with that, or until the market stabilizes a little bit. So eventually the market's either going to settle back down and correct itself, or it'll kind of either just keep going up and then just crash.
Yeah.
People have been speculating for the past year on what it could do. So
very, very curious on the future of that currency. Yeah. But now we don't have to be curious about what future chips our new phones will be running. Snapdragon has held a press conference in Hawaii. I wish we were invited to that. That would have been a fun conference in Hawaii.
Live from Hawaii.
Yeah, live from Hawaii. i4o. Qualcomm has detailed the next, put out the details for the next generation chipset, Snapdragon 845. Now it's running at a 10 nanometer process. So what that means is that the chips are getting smaller, the transistors are getting slower, closer together, and that means less power output, more power efficient, but also making things faster. So it has a new GPU, a new Adreno 630 GPU that should be about 30% faster than the current latest gen Snapdragon 835 chip, and it should also be about 30% more power efficient because of that reduction in the nanometer size. Putting those transistors closer together requires less power to run. It is.
This is actually interesting here in the article. They mention some of the Cryo 835 or 385 and the high power cores for that chip. It is offering at 25-30% on the 835. But this information about its capture capabilities is really interesting. So the new ISP will allow capture of HDR at 4K at 60 frames per second in video, which is the first in a smartphone.
Well, no.
And
HDR,
what?
Yes.
HDR, yeah.
Yeah, because the iPhone
HDR
can do
4K.
Yeah, the iPhone can do regular 4K at 60 frames, not HDR 4K.
And it also supports, and this is pretty crazy too, 480 frames per second slow motion capture at 720p with HDR. That's insane. So, and a selective motion capture, deep portrait mode, and various depth sensing technologies. So like that's like smartphones are going to be like on par with DSLRs pretty quickly.
Yeah, pretty quickly. This ISP, the image processing chip, is going to be also offers greater performance in machine learning and AI, which is interesting. Sort of how computer now, if they want to mine something for or use machine learning, or if they want to teach machine learning, they use a GPU. This is sort of that image processing chip that allows the speed up of AI and machine learning applications, which could be huge as well. So you can do everything on the phone locally. You don't need to send it off to Google or whoever to process that request of whatever that might be. Could be.
That's nice. And also for this, there's some benefits here in security as well. So the article goes on to mention that it contains a dedicated secure processing unit, which exists on what they call a power island on the chipset. So the new chip will be able to execute biometric and key authentication without ever running code on the primary processor, which is really good considering if your CPU gets compromised or your phone gets hacked, then they still have to get access to this third part or this like secure network on the hardware in order to actually access that biometric information. So that's pretty nice. That's a good step forward in security, and especially with I wonder if this is going to be similar to kind of Apple's secure enclave that they have in a way, or Intel's chips that they've had that run independently on the board. So I'm curious to see how this is going to develop for security, and if we see anything coming out with that in the future. But among that, there's 5x carrier aggregation, allowing peak speeds of up to 1.2 gigabytes per second.
Gigabits.
Gigabits, yeah, per second. So
quite different than gigabytes per second. But yes, it's still quite higher than what you typically get in LTE now. Although these are theoretical speeds, so we'll see what the real world will be. But still, it's an improvement to what it was previously.
Yeah, and for those who travel, it supports dual LTE SIM connectivity too. So instead of having one 2G and one 3G, or you can have two LTE SIM cards and run at full speeds on both, depending on where you are. So this is an exciting upgrade for Qualcomm.
For sure.
Usually a lot of it's just kind of under the hood improvements and stuff, but this seems to be like a major overhaul of the architecture. So
yeah. And during this conference in Hawaii, Windows and Qualcomm announced that Microsoft will be launching Windows 10 devices with ARM-based processors, and currently that will be running last generation. You could say that it's the current generation Snapdragon 835 processors that are running in most, or if not all, flagship smartphones, except for the iPhone, of course. So Windows is going to try to work with ARM again. So if some you might remember, Matt, you might remember too, when Windows 10 initially launched, Microsoft tried this by launching one of their Surface laptops to run on a limited version of Windows on ARM chips, Windows RT, if anybody remembers that. It quickly died off because you could only run apps from the Windows Store, and they had to be specially coded to work on ARM chips. You couldn't run any of your old apps, any EXEs, executables. They would just refuse to run on that ARM chip. But hopefully now they have built like an extraction layer where if you want to run the full regular Windows apps, like Photoshop, I've seen videos of them demonstrating Photoshop running on an ARM processor, where it emulates that regular Intel chip, so that Photoshop can still run natively on an ARM chip, which is fairly impressive without much of a hit on performance, which is very key. Another benefit that ARM brings along with it is that devices can now have always-on connectivity. So just like a smartphone, they can be always connected to LTE because they're so power efficient that it won't drain the battery. With this announcement, two manufacturers, one from HP and another one from Asus, have announced actual devices coming out early next year. One is a Surface-like device, the HP Envy X2. It pretty much looks like a Surface clone.
It really does.
Yeah. That offers an ARM chip within it. They haven't said any specific specs, but it looks like it's actually they have. So it's a 12.3 inch screen, 1920 by 1280, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 of storage. They haven't talked about pricing. That's what they haven't talked about for the HP Envy. So fairly nice specs, really nice specs. I'm just very curious of what that 835, what can it actually do? Because I know that the new Galaxy S8, which I owned for a while, and now the Pixel 2, that the one you have, is running that same chip, and you can run full-on Windows with it.
Just to go back on that price thing, though, earlier in the article, it looks like the expected range, even though they haven't announced exact prices, they were saying it's going to be $600 to $800,
which is really competitive.
That's pretty cheap. Yeah, it's competitive, and it's important to note. You could have just mentioned this, and I might have just been like in a blur at that moment. But they have a touchscreen, Windows Hello, pen input, and they come with Windows 10s, but you can fully upgrade them to Windows 10.
Yeah, so I mean they're really trying to push Windows 10s, but I don't know. If you want, it's nice that they give you the option. If you want full-on Windows, you can just press a button, upgrade for free. They don't make you charge, which is nice.
Yeah. We got to get the information on this Qualcomm conference and see if it's possible for us to at least get the information that was released from that, the press releases that come from that, or something, to see if there's anything that we should be following up on with this.
Yeah.
Because there could be some cool stuff coming out from Qualcomm.
For sure. They're huge. They're huge right now. They're powering a lot of devices out there, and they just got a foothold in terms of Windows. And I think these will be very popular, especially for that price, right? People are gonna look like, oh, I can have a nice Windows 10 laptop for $600 that's gonna run everything that I need to. Maybe they're going towards competing with Chromebooks, because I know a lot of Chromebooks do ARM processors.
You see, that's where I think I'm not too sure about, because with the kind of power that these ARM chips are capable of, if I was Intel, I'd be worried, honestly.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I don't think they're going to target Chromebooks. I think they're going to skip right over Chromebooks and go straight for Intel and like Ultrabooks and see if they can take them out of the market.
Yeah.
Because if you can have this ARM-powered computer that comes in, being able to run Photoshop under $800 and runs full Windows 10, and not to mention it has always-on LTE connectivity and it works as easily as your smartphone, I think that this is going to be a huge competitor to Ultrabooks.
For sure.
So
Intel has definitely things to worry about because they can't compete on that power efficiency yet. I know they're slowly.
And we've reported on Intel's inability to innovate before. So like they come out with a new CPU and it's like marginally better, like 10% at the most. And then these guys are like, oh yeah, new ARM CPU, it's 30% better efficiency. You can actually record 4K HDR 60 FPS on these chips. Like it's these new ARM chips are innovating at a rate faster than anything Intel is capable of currently.
Qualcomm is boasting battery life up to 25 hours. Okay, that's Qualcomm saying that. So I'm very curious on the actual performance. Take it with a grain of salt. That's the own manufacturer kind of boasting.
I always divide that by half for normal usage.
But still, if you divide that by half, that's still significantly more than a lot of Windows laptop at that price range offer currently today.
And I would believe it too, because ARM chips are incredibly power efficient.
Yeah.
I mean, they're designed to run smartphones, which have arguably just as much, if not more, going on under the hood than some of this stuff. But we got to see if it can handle Windows at its most beautiful and its most ugly. ARM has never seen something as powerful and as inefficient as Windows.
Yeah. So we should be seeing a lot more of these devices during CES in January. So currently the only two were shown off at the event. One was announced by Lenovo as well, but wasn't shown off at the event. So Lenovo said that they are currently in development of one of these laptops, but no, we haven't seen we don't know the specs yet. but we should see more during CES, is what all the manufacturers are saying. Just stay tuned. And then for the 845 processors with the brand new modem, Qualcomm said that they should start arriving. These Windows 10 devices should start arriving with those processors next year, towards probably the end of next year.
Yeah.
Also, we didn't mention the last one for the 845. Maybe I forgot to mention for phones launching with that processor. It reminded me that since I mentioned 845, that the first phone should be out in the spring of next year with running 845. So I'm curious of what that device will be.
When we mentioned that, that also reminded me of the GPS processor that we talked about on an earlier show. I think it's the L5.
Yeah.
I think that'll be releasing even later in the year. So it's looking like fall of 2018 is going to be fantastic for smartphones, especially with that L5 being accurate up to 20 centimeters, or even less than that. So that's going to be smartphones are going to be amazing in the next 2 years.
Oh yeah. So now we talked a little bit about Windows and Qualcomm working nicely together. Let's switch gears and talk about two companies who aren't really working nicely together at the moment.
This is great.
Oh man,
this is like watching two middle schoolers pass angry notes across the classroom, who are quote unquote dating. So 3 months ago, to catch everybody up to what happened, YouTube pulled its programming from Amazon's Echo Show device. In the first skirmish in what is apparently an ongoing war, according to this Verge article. So shortly after that, Amazon took the Nest thermostat, the camera, and the secure alarm system off of their store. And then 2 weeks ago, Amazon got YouTube back on the show by simply directing users to the web version. And now YouTube caught on to that and was like, nope. So this is like really anti-consumer back and forth going on between Amazon and Google right now. And it's annoying. It's really petty and it's really annoying in my opinion. So,
a spokesperson from YouTube give this blurb. We've been trying to reach an agreement with Amazon to give consumers access to each other's products and services, but Amazon doesn't carry Google products like Chromecast, and Google Home doesn't make Prime Video available for Google Cast users. Last month, stopped selling some of the Nest's latest products. Given this lack of reciprocity, we are no longer supporting YouTube on Echo Show and Fire TV. We hope we can reach an agreement to resolve these issues soon.
So it looks like Amazon's New Year's resolution is going to be to get rid of Google from all of their products because it's going to be starting on January 1st.
They offer a competitor to pretty much all of them. For Android TV, they have Fire TV. For Nest IQ, the camera, they launched the cameras for their new, where you can let Amazon open your door for delivery trucks. They have their own camera now. They have competing services with video streaming. I can see, the Prime Video competing with YouTube in a way. Chromecast devices with their Fire Sticks. Google Home with their Alexa. So they're playing in the same fields. But it would be just better for the consumer overall if they just played nice together. And it's really childish in a way.
It is. It's anti-consumer.
One should just man up and just do the right thing.
Yeah. I would hope that we would see something like this happen. But this is what you get when you get two companies trying to sell their voice assistants in the same boat. And you get this weird fragmented anti-consumer experience where for example, trying to explain to somebody who bought a Google Home Mini why they can't do anything with any of their Amazon products or anything that isn't a Chromecast is really annoying.
Yeah.
So, for example, somebody who wants to buy a Roku and a Google Home, they can't throw stuff up on the TV unless they have a Chromecast, or if the TV has a Chromecast built in. Yeah. They can't do it with
I was asked recently for recommendations on tablets, right? For I want a great tablet that at a great price that does all of these things. I was like, okay, you can have an iPad, which is the cost of that is fairly low now. That there's some deals during Black Friday that I saw for $250, but the person I was talking to was looking for something around $150 to $200, and I was like, okay, you have a couple options. You can get a really cheap Android tablet or a really good Fire tablet, right? So the Fire tablets are selling well. They're great devices, and they offer them at significant discounts. You can get a Fire tablet, an 8-inch one or 7-inch one, for $50 from Amazon, which is just ridiculous. But one of the key things that they were looking for is access to YouTube on that tablet. I was like, okay, then the Fire tablets are completely out because you can't watch YouTube on them at all. Unless you probably go to the website, you open the web browser and it'll go to the website. That's pretty much the only way that you can watch YouTube. So I forget where I was going with that.
Well, it's fragmented.
Yes, it's fragmented, right? You can't do. Yes, thank you, Matt.
You have to do this ridiculous dance around these different pieces of tech. You want this? Cool, you have this. But if you get this, you can't do this. Yeah. But if you want this, then all this is completely out of your
For the longest time, we both owned the the NVIDIA Shield device, right? For the longest time, it didn't have access to Amazon's video service. But now it recently got an update that gave that access. It gave a nice Amazon Prime app directly on the device, which is great. Now I can literally watch almost any service except for Apple on that device.
The NVIDIA Shield is looking more and more like this beautiful compromise between all the big TV set-top boxes.
Yeah.
Because it's got the Amazon Video baked into it. It's got support for third parties. You can turn it into a Samsung SmartThings hub. It supports 4K HDR with Dolby Atmos support. It has a built-in Chromecast for the Google Homes, and it has Google Assistant, and it can game. And that's the only one I usually, if people want to spend a little bit more money but don't necessarily want an Apple TV, that's the one I go for, because they're not going to be disappointed. But you can't do half that with a Roku.
Yeah, that turned into an ad for the Amazon Shield. Or the Amazon Shield, damn it. The NVIDIA Shield.
Well, I mean, it's a product I use, so it's what I'm familiar with.
Yes. No, but I agree. It's one of the most rounded pieces of streaming boxes or sticks. The Fire, it's better than the Fire Stick, in my opinion, the Roku. Because it might cost a little bit more money, but it's well worth it for people who are looking for that type of device. Yeah, better than the Fire Stick.
It's their slogan written on the box. But I mean, whether it's me endorsing a product and it's not sponsored, by the way, just as anybody was wondering, it's my own sponsorship. I love that product, but it's anecdotal. It's something that, like, if people want to compromise for this crazy network, that's something good to do. And the fact that you have to intimately be aware of everything these products can do before you buy it. Like whenever somebody asks me, like, oh, I want a set-top box to watch Netflix, I'm like, okay, what else do you want it to do? Then depending on their answer depends on if I point them towards an Apple TV or a Shield or a Roku or a Fire Stick, whatever. So, I mean, it is what it is. So this is the world we live in.
Yeah, hopefully Amazon and Google can get their act together and play nicely and benefit the consumers overall. Here's hoping.
Yeah. So with that, I think that brings us to an end. So unless you had any closing points on Amazon or Google, aside from well wishes towards their friendship.
Yep, just
okay.
Praying.
As for that, that brings the show, episode 31, to an end. You can catch us if you missed the stream, if you were a little late to it. This will be published to Twitch and YouTube, so you can rewatch us in all of our glory for immediately after the show is done. If you wait a little longer, it will be published on one of our many platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. and Podbean, all at Industry 4.0, all spelled out. You can see that in our new beautiful banner. Thank you, Ervin, for the redesign.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great. And as for us, if you don't want to watch us live, you can catch us on any of your favorite podcasting apps. We're available on Google Play, iTunes, Podbean. We're available on Pocket Cast, Stitcher, probably any podcasting platform you can possibly imagine that picks up an RSS feed. So with that being said, this is episode 31, and we will see you guys in the next one.
All right, we're back.
Wow. Look at us being live and whatnot.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Whoa.
I updated the title on Twitch as well.
Okay.
Everywhere. YouTube.
Taking a deep dive into cryptocurrency and tech behind it.
Oh.
I like it.
And the tech behind it. Damn it.
Ha.
Hmm?
It looks like you goofed.
I did done goofed.
You done goofed.
Thought
You done gone and done it.
have. Alright.
We have 19 subscribers on our YouTube channel.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah. I'm excited for this deep dive. I feel like a lot of people would like to know this information.
You want me to play the intro again? So you can have a good start?
We could. I feel almost like we should use a different intro for this. Just because it's a new section.
Hey, John. What's up? John's watching.
Hi.
He's typing into the Twitch chat. I just dove into some Litecoin.
Nice. We're going to talk a little bit about Litecoin and some advantages it has over Bitcoin. And by some, I mean I only have one.
Oh, man.
Oh, man, John, you're going all in on the cryptocurrency there. Ripple, Dash, Litecoin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some good stuff.
I'm also starting to get the shakes from all this coffee. So I'm ready to go. I'm fired up.
Let's do it.
I'm high on caffeine.
I'm just going to start off high level, move into how the blockchain works, and then go into some of the hardware and some of the examples on how everything works. Because I have and if you hear me turning pages for anybody watching the stream, it's because I have pages of notes that I have taken on Bitcoin.
Matt came prepared. He's ready to go. Rock and roll.
I have about
any articles you want to pull up for me to show on the screen, or no?
Honestly, I don't have a lot really. Okay. Like I don't I don't
We'll
think
just focus on
like,
the main video part then.
all my notes are here. They're not in
Yeah.
articles.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you wanted to pull up, like, you could even just have, like, if it's possible to get a live feed of the market between the three on
Ooh.
Coinbase.
I could definitely do that. What's the best site to do? I keep forgetting what the best one to do the live price.
Yeah, that would be cool to do, because just like have
Oh,
up some kind of
Firefox, stop.
topical information
are you
on
doing?
what we're discussing if we don't have articles to share for it, because I'm sure there's going to be deep dives in the future on stuff that may require citing articles. So, John, are you gonna get a wallet for that, or are you gonna store on an online platform? I'm curious, since you're spreading into 3 different coin channels. I'm interested to see if you're gonna pick up like a Ledger Nano S, or if you're gonna go with a more serious wallet or online solution. But yeah, because I have information here on Bitcoin itself, and some of that stuff is just very like vague. I have information on like some very basic stuff on the altcoins. I have ASIC versus GPU in here. I don't know if you've heard of ASIC cards.
I have not.
Ervin?
Oh, yeah, they're specifically designed to do mining.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But when I throw some numbers at you, it's gonna blow your mind on just how much more efficient they are than graphics cards. It's ridiculous. So then I go into transactions and the ledger, which I'll probably start on after I just get the basic stuff out of the way. And nice, Coinbase. That's what I use for my Ethereum, but I'm gonna be probably picking up a Ledger Nano so I can go to a cold wallet. So that's awesome. But yeah, then going a little bit about the transactions, like how transactions work, how the ledger works, because you can't have transactions are generated from people mining. So, and then the hash function, and then a little bit about how the hash function itself works. So for people who don't understand what the hash function is and how that works, I have a few really easy examples to kind of break it down a little bit. But we can start off high level and then just go crazy low level.
All right, I found a website that updates live for the prices. I think it's not live. Yeah, it's not live.
Darn.
But I wish it was. It's like all the numbers were just like in the stock market, the way you're viewing all the numbers updating live. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But no, it's fine. Okay. Ready to start. So you want the intro to play so you could just get a nice clean start? Let me start recording, actually.
I mean, we can. If not, I can always just do a little countdown to myself and then start, because if possible, it would be nice to apply a new sound to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like if someone hears a different theme music starting, it's not the news, you know?
Okay. I'm recording.
So,
I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay. I'll just do a countdown in my head, and then.
Well, you can do it out loud. That helps for
me.
me.
I'll count down. Yeah,
when editing.
Yeah, I'll count down from 3. Start after 1.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome everybody to i4o Explains. This is a new segment that we're doing. There's been a few episodes in the past of our news that we've kind of talked a little bit about certain topics, and we feel that just kind of glazing over them in the news doesn't exactly do them justice. And there are several topics that I think we should spend a little more time on talking about. So with the beginning of this inaugural step in our podcast, we thought what better thing to talk about than quite possibly the hottest topic in technology this past month.
Yeah.
And that is Bitcoin, and more specifically and simultaneously less specifically, the entire thing that is cryptocurrency, and what it is, what's involved in it, what the hash functions are, how the blockchain works, and just some examples of different altcoins, as they're called, which are just coins that aren't Bitcoins. So
Yeah.
just to kind of start off with the most high level way to describe it, Bitcoin is not really any different than real money being spent through credit cards. So it's just a currency, and you can't. The only difference between credit cards and Bitcoin is you can't print Bitcoin. You mine it. So, and we'll get into that later in this initial episode. But the big thing with Bitcoin that's better than, or that people view as better than standard currency, is that it's decentralized. So there's no bank involved for monitoring the ledger or the transaction history. So typically the transaction history is audited by a bank or controlled by a bank. So that way there's no fraud. In this case with Bitcoin, everybody who is involved in transactions carries a copy of the ledger. And I think as of I can only imagine it's bigger, but it's already, the ledger's over 100 gigabytes. So it's a huge, huge, huge ledger for the transaction history. And so going into a little bit about Bitcoins, I kind of wanted to focus for the beginning bit about the ledger itself, since it's such a huge component of crypto and arguably the entire basis of how Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, all that stuff works. So unlike a bank, and you probably know this, Ervin, all transactions on the blockchain are stored publicly and anonymously. So you can see, it's kind of like looking through your credit card account, where you see your transactions of what you've spent money on and who you spent money to, but that is locked behind a password, and nobody else can see your transaction history except for you and the bank.
Yeah.
So the difference with that is you see the whole list of spending that happened on the entire history of Bitcoin since it started. So the way you see that, though, you don't see names, you don't see account numbers, you don't see anything. You just see the cryptographic hashes of each user and the amount that was transferred between the accounts.
And the benefit that offers is that anyone can verify a transaction, right? Third party, anyone who has access to that ledger, which is anyone who wants it, can just download it and verify that a particular transaction, making sure that it occurred, the proper amount was transferred. So it becomes kind of like an open source type of looking back at the information, which is great. It's the same way that open source software is great for security. This is great for verifying the transactions to ensure that everything is being done properly, because it's open to anyone who wants to verify that information.
Right. And now I bet the next question that many people would have is, since everybody has a copy of the ledger, and since every transaction updates every ledger, how are these all kept in sync, right? So what happens is a transaction must solve a calculation to go through. So this solves a couple of problems right off the bat. So for one, these calculations, the first ones to complete that calculation are the first one, are the final transaction that is added to the ledger. So this kind of prevents another person saying, let's say Bob, this prevents Bob from sending the same Bitcoin to 3 different people. So he would send out the Bitcoin, and the first transaction to complete that hash would be the transaction that goes through and the one that gets added to the ledger. So the way the ledger is verified is that every time a ledger transaction history is requested, which is at the very beginning of the transaction, so they request the history to see to see if that money has already been spent before it even bothers with the calculation. So when it's requested, another hash must be solved, and this allows this is a broadcast calculation that's solved by everyone who owns the ledger. And it's kind of like, for example, if you're playing poker with somebody or you're with 5 different people and everybody is checking their transactions to see that every time a move is made, it's the correct amount of money is moving. So the way that that goes off of is the majority of the ledgers that carry the same history. That is the history that's used. So I don't know if that made sense. It kind of, I feel like that's very, I tried to keep it high level with that, but basically the long story short is that the majority of the ledgers that hold a record, that is the record that's used, and that prevents one person from influencing the ledger too much. So it goes off of hundreds of thousands of decentralized locations performing calculations, and the majority are carrying the accurate history. So I guess that makes sense. Is that clear?
Yeah, no, yeah. That's fairly clear. Yeah.
So like basically power in numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't know if that would be a good segue to go into what the hash function actually is, because this is kind of the real meat of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And one of these two calculations, particularly the calculation that adds a transaction to the ledger, that is how Bitcoin is mined. So the way that the ledger is kept up to date is, particularly in Bitcoin, is when a transaction goes to be added, it's sent out to the public, and people who are currently mining Bitcoin are running the hash cycles to add that transaction to the ledger. So when the calculation is completed, the account that has completed that hash is awarded Bitcoin for the ledger. So this kind of allows Bitcoin to globally be distributed at a close to random interval. And that also, I think, is a fixed number of Bitcoin until so often where it'll half. So I think the current award for completing a hash to add to the blockchain is 12.5 Bitcoin. So that's quite a bit of money for solving a calculation.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think by 2018 or 2019, that number will half. So there will be less Bitcoin added. Or I think it'll go down to about 6, and then it'll go down to about 3. So I think in my notes I have that. The total available mining coins halves every 4 years. So there is, to kind of go back a little bit. So now you know how the hash works. Now you know how Bitcoin mining works, and now you know how the ledger is kept up to date. The other important topic is that with Bitcoin specifically, there is 21 million Bitcoin total. So that gives the currency a finite amount, so people can't just infinitely print Bitcoin and have infinite amounts of money, because that's not how a currency works.
Yeah.
And apparently a cool fact that I learned while doing my research was that the last Bitcoin will be mined at the current rate in 2140. So there's a lot of Bitcoin left.
Yeah, but it's like you said, it's getting harder and harder to mine as we get closer to that limit.
Right. And in order to mine, there's that hash function that we talked about earlier that I brought up. So to kind of provide an easy example for this, and I feel like people would want to know what specifically a hash function is. The hash function itself is just it's a computing term used in programming. It's used across the internet for things as simple as exchanging money, to making sure that it's safe, all the way down to login credentials, which is probably the most common use of a hash on the internet. So what a hash function is it takes a variable input and converts it into a fixed output. So that way the output is easy to predict, but it's irreversible.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example of this is a function that outputs the answer 10. So it's easy to guess 10 because it's whatever that it's just an easy number to guess, but you don't know what happens in that function to generate 10. So for example, it could be 5 plus 5, it could be 5 times 2, it could be 20 divided by 2, it could be 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 1, it could be any number of combinations of calculations to get to the answer 10. So this makes it extremely secure because it's incredibly hard to guess. And that is not an actual form of hashing. And if a website does use that function for hashing, that person should be fired because that is not a safe hash at all. But Bitcoin itself uses a industry proven hash functionality, and most cryptos, I believe, use this also. It's SHA 256, which was developed by the NSA for cryptography. And you know a bit about SHA, I'm sure, Ervin.
Yeah.
But there's the computer specifically around cryptocurrency is solving these hashes. So it's trying to generate the part that is hard to guess. And that is the current way that most cryptography and cryptocurrency is solved. So mining is just running calculations to get those guesses correct. So whoever solves this problem has their transaction added to the transaction history. And that is what we discussed earlier in how Bitcoin is awarded. And I notice this is becoming quickly like a lecture. So if you have anything you'd like to add to this, Ervin.
No, yeah, go ahead. No,
yeah.
I'll jump in whenever I can. But
yeah, it's a lot, and there's a lot going into Bitcoin and what it is. So like, there's different types of hardware that's better for mining Bitcoin and different types of hardware that's worse for mining Bitcoin. So for example, when Bitcoin was first created, you could just use this, you could just dedicate a few CPU cycles to it and get hundreds of Bitcoin. But since each calculation that's solved takes all of the old guesses that failed and adds that into the next calculation, it becomes substantially harder to guess subsequent cryptographic hashes. And like you're saying, makes it way harder to actually mine feasibly with a graphics card, because now I think you need basically like massive dedicated rigs and farms in order to actually mine Bitcoin at this rate.
Yes.
Other ones, such as
Dogecoin, where you're profitable, right? So like you can mine it, but you're not going to be wasting more on electricity or actual hardware to mine something where you might not be gaining. You're not going to have a return on your investment, right? You could spend on 10 cards, a GTX 1080 Ti. You can buy 10 of those, and that's going to be a significant cost, and that at this point might not even be enough to turn around a profit for Bitcoin in terms of cost of the hardware plus the electricity plus everything else that you need.
Whereas like with Dogecoin, you could accidentally get like 5,000 Dogecoin. So it's something that like it really depends on how far along and how mature the blockchain is. That depends on how hard it is to actually mine. But it's a really cool technology, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because there's this whole air of mystery around it. And as anybody who's still listening has just caught on to the fact of that, it takes 20 minutes to explain how it works, in maybe more. I haven't kept track of the time, but like it's something that is incredibly difficult to catch people up on, and involves a lot of knowledge of what a hash is, what the blockchain means. But just to kind of recap, the long-term description of, or the too long didn't read, if you will, of Bitcoin is the easiest way to describe what it is it's a ledger of all previous transactions. Each transaction, as it's added, is rewarded Bitcoin, which distributes currency to the network. And the hashes that aren't calculated into the correct guess are used to generate the next step in that. And I think each one handles that little bit on how the hash function gets tougher a little bit differently. So that could be inaccurate information for several other coins and for several other branches of cryptocurrency. But this is changing all the time, and there's new coin, and they call them ICOs, initial coin offerings, as different coins jump into the market. But that's like the summary on how it works. But the only other thing that someone who's looking into this transaction history might want to know is, how do we know that a transaction is valid? We know that it solves the calculations to prevent duplicates, but we don't know how I can tell, for example, like if, for example, Ervin, if I were to email you a banana, like a photo of a banana, like how would you know that that is the PNG file for the banana? Or if I just Control-C'd it and then sent you the copy, right?
Yeah.
So the way that a transaction is verified as being sent from me, and it's that Bitcoin, is the transaction itself. Think of it as like a 3-tiered like note card almost. It's like an envelope basically. So it has the return address and the sender's address, and that itself is the account number of who is sending it and the account number of who is receiving it. So that is the bulk of the message. Inside the envelope, you have the amount of Bitcoin being transferred, and the stamp is where I'm going with this. It's the signature of the transaction. So each transaction is signed by the person sending it, and this is verified using their public key, which is for cryptographic hashing. There's a public key and a private key. The private key is unique to you, and the public key is generated from the private key that you distribute to everybody who you would be receiving who you'd be receiving the amount of Bitcoin. So when someone gets a transaction, they run your public key against it, and if it matches, then they can tell with 100% certainty that it is coming from you. So basically, these keys are just huge numbers that are generated from one-way functions, which are just cryptographic hash. It's a hash function.
Yeah.
So everything in these transactions is run through hash and is run through encryption. So that is the basis of a transaction. And since everybody has their own copy of the ledger, and these functions need to all be run, the only caveat to this is that you may not receive transactions in the same order as another person. So sometimes if you send money and then send money to somebody else, the second transaction may go through before the first transaction, depending on the network, because of how big it is and how distributed it is. And that's just one of the downsides to having a decentralized network. So basically, with those transactions, just easiest way to think of it as an envelope. So you have the return address, the send address, the amount inside the envelope, and the stamp, which is how someone can tell that with 100% certainty it came from you. So I know that some of these coins are used differently, and some of these coins have different purposes and run different things in order to I guess to have value would be a good way to describe that. Like there's Bitcoin, which is largely referred to as the original. There's Ethereum, which is the secondary, which utilizes the smart contracting functionality. And Ervin, we can go a little bit more into that as we get into the individuals. And then there's Litecoin, which is just kind of it's an easy entry form of Bitcoin. Makes it a little bit easier to mine, and it's built to be a little more friendly to people who are making an entry into the crypto markets. And as we're seeing in the Twitch chat, Zebinator says there's a lot of scam coins out there,
Yeah, for sure.
which is a good thing to note because that is true. There's a lot of coins that are literally just vaporware that show up on the market, get the initial coin offering boost, and then just dismantle themselves. So, and regulation is a whole different note as well.
Yeah,
But regulation, that's the whole point about having a decentralized network is that it's incredibly hard for a single body to regulate, and the regulation is done through the blockchain itself. That kind of a question falls more into researching ICOs than it does actually having a regulatory body taking these out. So it would be kind of like if I decided to introduce monopoly money into the free market. and
there's a lot of news, like governments trying to launch their own cryptocurrencies for certain types, maybe just for the verification part of it, like the smart contracts, or actually a sort of type of replacement for their own current currency. I think that is sort of going against the idea of these coins, right? If a government's running it, they're the creators, then you remove that sort of decentralized kind of aspect of it, because now it is being sort of controlled by an entity.
Right.
Whereas the whole idea of these cryptocurrencies is that it's decentralized, like you mentioned. It's not being controlled by anyone or anything.
And user Kianigan asked a good question in the chat too. What is vaporware? And I know it was answered in the chat, but for anybody who listens to this after the fact, vaporware is software that is advertised and is used. You'll see this happen frequently in what is it, Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Yes. Oh my God, Kickstarter.
Like products and services that claim to do these great things, but they collect all this money and then they just leave.
Yeah, empty promises, right? So they promise to do X or release at some point, but they never do. Yeah, a great example, like you mentioned, is Kickstarter, right? I invested in a couple of Kickstarters that in like 2 or 3 years ago that I still haven't gotten yet. There's no updates, nothing. So that's the vaporware. A lot of these vaporware coins,
you call them
vapor coins that you have to be really careful. I know, Matt, you mentioned a little bit about ICOs, initial coin offerings, and there's a lot of articles, a lot of mystery around all of these. There's some who have raised multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, $200 million plus in their initial coin offering or ICO, and all they have is a white paper describing what it will eventually do, right? And you have no idea if they're actually going to launch a product with this or where that investment is going that you put in, the money that you put in. There's no actual tech. There's no real world tech right now. It's just a piece of paper, a white paper that describes, okay, this is how we're going to use the blockchain tech to do X and Y, but you never know if it's actually going to launch. So people are investing a lot of money. So you have to be really careful of where you put your money in these initial coin offerings, ICOs out there. You have to really do your due diligence, do your research before you really start investing your money into this, because you might not see it. It might be gone in a couple of years, because you don't know, that company goes under or whatever. They just decide to shut down and they have your money, and there's really no way for you to get it back because it isn't really backed by any protections that governments might have put there, like your banking or something, like the credit cards put protections against fraud and things like that. That's not a thing with cryptocurrencies.
You do see a lot of articles that are written, and a lot of these cryptocurrencies that are emerging do have public papers that are published as they are moving towards ICO, and it would behoove someone who's interested in trying to jump into this ICO market and maybe make a profit on some of these initial coin offerings to look a little bit into the tech behind what that Bitcoin or what that cryptocurrency product itself is, and understand what it is. And sometimes it's very low level, and they get into the weeds with their details on the tech, and it can be very hard for a standard person to do that, which is why it's best to play it safe with some of the bigger, more well-established coins, and just kind of play the market as that goes, if you're willing to just kind of see what it's all about and get into it. But anybody who's moving farther and farther into initial coin offerings for much smaller coins should have a much better idea of what they're doing, and should be very well aware of the fact that scams and vaporware and vapor coin has a very high possibility, because with any emerging market, there's always scammers who try to game it. So
for sure. If you're watching the live stream right now, I do have the live crypto prices pulled up in the quarter there. That's fairly fun to watch.
Yeah,
as prices are fluctuating and changing.
Yeah, and the Zebinator's offering in the chat, he was saying, I think it would be helpful for other viewers, giving examples of good ICOs like Power Ledger and scam ones. And I don't know too much about the initial coin offerings for some of the smaller ones. This focus was mainly on what cryptocurrency is and what Bitcoin is, and how this all falls into this emerging market that is cryptocurrency. I can leave that up to the listener but just putting the information out there that scams are likely, and anything like that is something that I feel is good to know. So thank you for that. But to kind of go back into this topic, I know we talked a little bit about transactions, the ledger, what a transaction is, how it's built up, and how the hash functions work. There's a little bit more we have left to discuss, such as some of these altcoins that and I'm sure you've heard the term sprinkled throughout this chat. So some of these altcoins are Ethereum, Litecoin, Dogecoin, Dash, Ripple, etc. So there's tons of coins out there that someone could get into. So to start off with Ethereum, that is the de facto number 2 coin out there. It's largely accepted as the alternative of Bitcoin if someone's looking to invest in something. And I know, Ervin, you know a little bit more about the smart contracting system that Ethereum utilizes, is where it gets its value from.
Yeah.
And how that works. And I don't know if you want to dive into that a little bit, at least keeping it high level for the listener, just so they kind of understand what Ethereum is.
Yeah, so
Ethereum
was built from the ground up to be more than just an alternative coin or just a replacement for currency. It was built as a sort of like a programming kind of language in a way, where you can incorporate it into other types of uses other than what Bitcoin is sort of the main focus of is right now, is to replace decentralized verbal currency. And one way of using the Ethereum tech is to build what's called smart contracts. So these smart contracts, in short, allow you to exchange money, property, shares, anything of value in a transparent way that avoids a middleman. So that middleman verification of it. So if you're transferring anything of value from one person to another, you typically need to write up a contract, have a lawyer overview it to make sure it's nice and sound, that everything happens in an orderly fashion, that everything transfers, so you're giving monetary value for something, that transaction goes through, it's validated, things like that. A smart contract can take that middleman out and do it all through a proven programmatic way using the technologies that Matt described, using those smart hashes, the verification, using that ledger technology to execute these contracts to ensure that, yes, the value that I'm giving you has been verified by the blockchain, this end thing, property, whatever it might be that I'm giving someone, is verified through a third party, and it's secure since it's math, right? It's hard to fool math. It's that ledger is the key to all of this. So these smart contracts allows you to remove that third party completely and do it in a transparent way where anybody can verify that transaction, whatever it might be. So it has huge potentials for replacements of current technology. For one could be for supply chain management. UPS has been looking into verifying that the supply chain kind of thing, the moving all these packages to verify, yes, if something has been delivered, and using the Ethereum or the blockchain technology to do that behind the scenes could be very useful for that type of thing. Another one is using it for real estate or selling stuff online. So like things like on Craigslist, if you're selling it to someone, or on eBay, you can use the blockchain tech to ensure that there are no frauds happening, right? Where you give someone something and you expect a monetary return, right, on a product or whatever that you're selling. You can use this blockchain tech to verify that exchange, and to create a contract in between the person, the two people, or the two entities that are exchanging the goods and services, to ensure that everything's happening in a nice way, right? It reduces the fraud.
It's easy to integrate too, which is something that's good for programmers who might want to utilize Ethereum in transactions. It's a fully fleshed out programming, like it has capabilities that are akin to a standard programming language. So
another use case for the smart contracts is in healthcare. It could be used for storing personal health records that could be encoded and stored on the blockchain with that private key. So it's nice and secure. It can only be, and then given access to only certain individuals, and ensuring that, yes, these are the only people who have access to it, and the blockchain will verify that and will keep it secure. And the same strategy could be used to ensure that the research is conducted via all the HIPAA laws. So everything is protected, right? Only the people who are authorized to view any personally identifiable information that might be relevant to that person are the ones that are actually viewing that data, and also offers a proof of delivery, right? So if you want to send to your doctor all your medical history, right, you can just, through the blockchain technology, you can send it securely to your doctor, and you can ensure that, yes, that doctor, since they have their own type of like signature assigned to them, to a cryptographic key, right? Your doctor can, once the doctor views it, they're the only ones who have access to it, and you can ensure that through technology, through math, for completely proven that, yes, that your doctor is the only one who has access to that information. Nobody else can have access to that. So it could be really huge for that too. There's a lot of different areas, and we're only in the beginning of all this. So people are still thinking of new ways, innovative ways to use this technology for sure. But
right.
Very curious on the future of it. We'll provide a link to in the show notes if you guys want to read more about the smart contracts, and also find some great articles on how to avoid any ICO scams. So we talked about that earlier. We'll put that into the show notes so you can reference those once you download the podcast, for sure.
Right. And for anybody looking to get those show notes, if downloading the podcast, if you wanted an easy way to read them on your computer as well, I know the show notes aren't quite conducive to being easily parsable on a phone, but if you wanted to do that, also the show notes are copied into our Facebook publishing also. So you'll be able to access that through our Facebook page as well. And it's the same copy of the show notes that gets distributed across all of our platforms. So it's something else just to note that we do also have that through our Facebook page as well, and our Twitter account, and I think we even published to YouTube as well. So there are ways to get those show notes. So anybody looking to get more information, and as we put in articles in there, be sure to check that out. So, but going back into it, Litecoin is much easier to explain than the other ones. It's largely just based on Bitcoin, but it is cheaper and easier to mine. Mining it is 4 times faster than Bitcoin.
It just jumped in price like 60% increase recently in the past it did. 3 days.
It spiked a lot.
Yeah,
I saw that. I was thinking about buying it because it was saying that because it was they were at $90 I think last week, and now they're at over 160 I think.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's important to note, and I'll get into this in a little bit, is Litecoin is ASIC resistant. So what that means in the short term is that it's not as effective if you're using something more powerful than a standard GPU. So the calculations that it runs are, it's not efficient if you were to use a really powerful machine. So it would be overkill. And it's just as hard to crack it on a graphics card as it is on an ASIC card. So with that, I'm sure that some people are wondering, well, what's an ASIC card? So when you're mining, you have several different options. If you're a sadist, you can mine using a CPU. And you can destroy your computer. If you are a standard person looking to mine an initial coin or a coin like Litecoin or Dogecoin, you can use your GPU in your computer right now, and depending on how much money you spend on your computer depends on how well that'll perform. Or if you're a baller, you can go all out and get an ASIC card. And a ASIC card, in short, it's just a purpose-built computer to perform hash calculations. So hash calculations themselves are measured in terms of kilo hashes, mega hashes, stuff like that. It's similar to how memory is measured. But a kilo hash is just a measurement of how many hashes can happen within a span of time. So for example, if you're going off of a standard high-end consumer graphics card, such as a 1080, or something like that, one of the higher ends, they're capable of up to 1 to 2 kilo hashes, depending on how powerful of a graphics card you have. And an ASIC is capable of, and Ervin, be sure you're square in your seat when I give you this number. An ASIC is capable of up to 1,500 gigahashes, depending on how much you want to spend on that card. So it's a little bit more powerful.
just a tiny bit.
Yeah, so 1 to 2 kilo versus almost 1 to 2,000 times that number. So ASIC cards are a good option if you're looking to get into Bitcoin, because that's about all that's feasible right now to actually do that. And those can run up to thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. You can go as cheap as one that's on a little USB stick, and that's not going to be too powerful, but still more powerful than a graphics card. And those range anywhere from up to, I'm seeing, you can even see some of the smaller ASIC cards on Amazon. They have them for under $100. So that may be an option if you wanted to get into mining like a smaller coin, like Ethereum or something like that, or even Bitcoin. But and they go all the way up to like $15,000, even more, depending on if you want to get like something that basically you'd have to store offsite in like a warehouse.
Yeah. And have access to cheap energy.
Yeah. So basically, if you store this in the Hoover Dam, you're probably fine. But
tap
if you're storing this in your basement, you're probably gonna kill power to the neighborhood.
Oh man! I just imagine someone just tapping into the Hoover Dam, just plugging in.
Neighbors like 5 blocks away, their lights dim. It's like, oh, it's just Frank turning on his ASIC. No big deal. He's just mining into the network. It's all no big deal. But but yeah, that's what an ASIC card is, and I felt like that's something that's important to note if someone's looking into that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, for sure. And there's dedicated machines just built for the purpose of mining. So it's not a regular computer. It doesn't have a regular operating system. It's just dedicated to mining any coin, and it's like built on that type of technology, the ASIC, to maximize the performance.
Yeah. Yep. And as you solve those calculations, which I was saying nets you 12.5 Bitcoins in Bitcoin, at least specifically, that was as of November 2016. So that number, I'm not sure when the 4-year cycle is for when it halves, but I think it may be around 2018, 2019 that will half. So anybody listening to this in the future trying to get an intro into what this scary behemoth of Bitcoin is in 2018 or 2019, if it turns out that way, just so you know, this is accurate to November 2016 and information up to December 2017. So, but the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is kind of the most esoteric, would be a word, I guess, way to describe it, is something that everybody who doesn't know much about Bitcoin or the science behind it wants to know. And that is, how the hell do you tell how much this is, and how do you place value in these coins? Like why, for example, right now I'm looking at it on the stream, is Bitcoin worth $15,200?
Right, and why a day ago it was down to 13,000. I was just looking at the history. It dropped like significant. It reached a high of like 18,000 and then dropped significantly. And now it's back up to like down to 13,000. Now it's back up to 15. Like what? Yeah, I'm very curious what determines that price. Is it like similar to the stock market? Is it just a perceived value? What are people willing to pay for it?
So I'm going to both make you somewhat satisfied and disappoint you at the same time, because I got more non-answers than I did answers when I spent time researching this.
That's great.
So
it's a mystery. It's a black box. Nobody knows.
It is. So a lot of it is involved in trust in the network itself. So people derive value from this incredibly secure way of verifying and auditing transactions without any kind of legal body standing in between you and the person you're giving the money to. So a lot of value is perceived in that, because if a bank goes down, this is still around because someone else just will have the ledger. So it's a very stable and secure form of currency, and it's a good option in the future once things can be brought up to speed, because like most things, if it's decentralized, it's typically more verifiably secure than something that is held by one body that people have to place trust in that they're going to do their job. So that is the first reason why value is derived from cryptocurrency itself. The second is the tech behind it. So for example, with Ethereum, their smart contracting and their ability to verify purchases across a vast spectrum of different fields, such as you said, medical, banking, anything that could go into a transaction, an exchange of goods between one party and another party. People see value in that tech, and a investment in Ethereum can be considered an investment in that technology. So almost kind of funding the development and expansion of people who want to utilize that technology. So that is kind of another way you could look at this value and see why it's as popular as it is. And why it has the value that it has is just faith in the technology. And the third one, and the one that makes the least sense to me, is that it's just because of its popularity and things that are popular. Like everybody remembers the .com bubble in the 90s when...
Yeah, a lot of people have been comparing this bubble, quote unquote, to the .com where there happened in the early 2000s.
This itself is, I think, different than the .com bubble. But that being said, people went crazy when Bitcoin hit $1,000 for the first time and then tanked way back down. So maybe we're seeing this happen again, but on a much larger scale with much more money involved. But that goes to what happens to Bitcoin in the future, what happens to cryptography in the future, what happens to cryptocurrency, the technology behind Bitcoin, its popularity, because I would assume that as Bitcoin becomes more mainstream, it won't be in the news as much anymore. It'll get forgotten. It'll get brought back to what it was, and the value will correct itself to whatever level it's at. And people are saying this may be a high point for Bitcoin, but we don't know because there's nothing to compare this to. You have no history. Even the .com bubble is different from this.
Yeah.
So this is a currency, whereas the .com bubble was, oh, look at all these online companies. We don't know how to value them because they don't have tangible goods. What's going on? Oh, help us, somebody. But like this is the actual currency. This is both the product and its worth. So no one really knows like if it's going to go up or down. So
yeah, and things like when China dropped out, they banned all cryptocurrencies. That took a hit, but it bounced right back. That's that type of scare. I don't know.
So yeah, like then that reason in itself is why I think that it may be less vulnerable to a bubble than the internet companies were, because that's a huge country. They were like, nah, no Bitcoin, and it bounced back to even higher than it was before then. For matters whether related or unrelated, it's higher than it was when China backed out. So
when the fork happened, another drop happened, but then that's when it started to skyrocket from that initial 800 or 1,000. That's when this huge jump started. Right when that fork, everybody was worried that it's gonna tank right after the fork for Bitcoin, the initial one earlier this year. Happened. Right. Everybody was worried that it's going to tank, but it didn't actually. That's what triggered a lot of the skyrocketing.
Yeah. So I mean, it is what it is, and that's about all the answers that I have.
What do you think of all these people investing? I know that we talked about this earlier in the pre-show before we started recording, but now Coinbase is the #1 app, the free app within the iTunes App Store. It's definitely becoming more mainstream. A lot of people are starting to invest their money
on the iTunes store.
Yeah. What do you think that all these people getting into it, is it a worthy investment? Would you do? I know you have some in terms of Ethereum that you invested a little bit into that, but I've heard people where they're investing thousands and thousands of dollars into Bitcoin. These are not tech people. These are normal people.
Yeah, like, and then you just had some of the big financial bloggers and financial people saying buy Bitcoin. Like it's becoming popular enough to the point where even they're starting to take interest in it, and you're seeing articles published in non-technical ways on like what Bitcoin is. But I'm going to go ahead and just preface this statement with Coinbase is a fine solution for anybody starting off with cryptocurrency.
Yes.
And it's a fine solution for anybody working in small transactions. That being said, I encourage everybody to look into Coinbase a little bit and some of the struggles that people have had with it.
Getting money out, especially.
Yeah, a good example of this is the subreddit for Coinbase. It's just our Coinbase. There are some nasty horror stories on that subreddit of things that have happened, and I encourage everybody to go look into that, just because they're going to be handling your money and some account information from you, so it's important to know what their history is and if you should trust them. But
the support nightmares is what turned me off of using Coinbase for sure.
It's what's driving me away from them. I'm going to be moving my coin off of Coinbase very soon.
Also very curious, all these people signing up for Coinbase, and let's say potentially Bitcoin could start crashing, like nosediving down, right? It could go back to $1,000 per coin. It certainly is possible. That's not out of this realm. At that point, right, everybody starts freaking out. They all start selling. And one of the main issues that I've seen on Coinbase is that it takes forever to verify the selling of a particular coin, that verification process that you talked about a little bit takes a really long time, and then sometimes it just completely denies that you taking the money out from Coinbase. And if everybody who has invested money through Coinbase starts selling, like when you want to sell, and by the time you actually sold that coin, the price could have changed significantly. So if you want to you see that drop and you're like, okay, I'm out, I want to get out of this before I start losing more and more money, by the time you actually get it sold, it could be way lower than what you were expecting.
Right.
So it's not that easy to get your money out, from what I've heard. It's not quick. Investing as well takes like 7 days, I think, right now, to invest through Coinbase. It needs a 7-day verification time before you initially buy a particular coin and where you actually own it, which is kind of crazy. So you have
there are much quicker ways of getting coin, though, than just through Coinbase, which is important to note. And that don't involve their verification. You can transfer them in to Coinbase,
Yes.
But some coin require transaction fees, such as Bitcoin and Coin and Ethereum, which I think Ethereum coins that transaction fee term as gas. So
Yes.
there's gas fees for Ethereum, which is very appropriate. But you'll lose a little bit transferring in, but it may be a little bit quicker. But anybody looking to get into it seriously and looking to get into it in the long term, I highly encourage to get what people call a cold wallet, which is a wallet that is stored on a dedicated piece of hardware that is not connected in any way to the internet unless to make a transaction. So, and you could do that if you had an old laptop laying around that you never use and you never connect to the internet, and you know for sure 100% that you're only ever going to log onto that computer to make a transaction, then by all means use that laptop.
Yeah, but make sure you have backups of that, because if that hard drive dies in there or that motherboard dies, you can't turn on that laptop. You have to have a way of recovering that wallet. Just make sure you have backups of it. And then the key thing with those hardware wallets is treat them like they are a piece, like money, right? If you lose it, it's gone, right?
That's
you
your
can't, you can't get it back.
Yep. And the other important thing to note, as a product that another thing someone can buy, another option, and Zeminator just beat me to the punch in the chat. The Ledger Nano, the Ledger Nano S, I think specifically is a good one to look into for a good intro. And you can find that on Amazon. It's a $70, $80 thumbstick that runs a custom OS built around storage, recovery in case of failure, and being connected for the sole purpose of just being a secure way of storing and transferring coin between accounts. So anybody looking to get into this, who want to store in the long term, over the span of years, I encourage move your coin to a Ledger Nano or a similar technology. And like I was saying, the Ledger Nano does have built-in recovery, so if you do, you don't have to worry about it failing. There's recovery keys and ways to get that back and get access to the account. So that's important to note. But all of these require advanced technical overhead that aren't as easy as Coinbase. And that's why I say that Coinbase is a good way to get some coin and get a good introduction into the market, just to see like what it's like. But beyond that, if you plan on taking this more seriously, then absolutely go for something other than Coinbase, because the whole point of a coin is to be decentralized, and the fact that you're storing it in an entity is kind of ironic in a way. Yeah. If you think about it,
you have to have that trust, right, within Coinbase that they're not going to go down. We have heard of hacks. The most recent one was NiceHash. NiceHash got hacked recently, and a lot of money was stolen. Their own wallet was compromised, And yeah, a lot of people had quite a bit of money invested in there. So you have to be careful that the Coinbase or whoever's you trust in keeping your coin is doing their due diligence and doing the security right, and also everything else behind that to ensure that how you're storing it, your money is safe. So
because it's money. It's real money.
It is.
So
and people
there's real intrinsic value to these coins.
Yeah.
So, and if you value money, then you probably want to keep it safe. And what better way to do that than to put it in a box in a drawer, not connected to the internet?
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
With a lock on it, because then you can actually put that safe in a safe, and then you have two-factor authentication right there without any additional money.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, and as user Harjo is saying in the chat, the only benefit is that it's backed. The Coinbase is backed by FDIC insurance up to $250,000, but that statement would like to have a word with those horror stories from Coinbase. That's if you can get through their support. So, if you can get through Coinbase support, then you're probably fine.
Also, last week in our episode, we talked about Coinbase getting, if you do more than $20,000 in transactions, they are required to report that to the IRS now. So Uncle Sam is
not saying if you want to evade taxes, but if you don't want to have to report anything to the IRS, then
if you're
or
in
you
the
plan
US,
on storing in the long term. Because I would assume that even sending that kind of money to your own personal wallet would require an IRS notice. So I don't know if that counts as a transaction or not. I haven't.
It has to be like profit, right? So if you, let's say you invested at Bitcoin at 5,000 and then you sold it at 15, you have to pay taxes on that 10,000 that you made off of that. If you're not really cashing out, because I'm assuming it's similar with the stock market, because if in the stock market, if you just sell one stock and then invest it, you only start paying taxes when you sold the stock. So if you, let's say you own a stock for 10 years, you don't pay any taxes on that. Only when you sell it and make a profit and get that cash value and put it in your bank account, that's when you start have to pay capital gains tax on it.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's the same way because it's a similar idea, right? You're buying something at a certain value, it can increase, and then you're selling and you're making a profit. And I think the IRS is viewing it in the same way.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's all I got.
Yeah. No, that was great. And I hope everybody listening or watching on Twitch or YouTube had a better understanding of what cryptocurrencies are, get a more education. And we like to continue these sorts of i4o explains videos every week. So we'll tackle different different topics that we might find interesting.
And something that's important to note is we do take viewer feedback. So if you do have something that you want us to do a deeper dive on that you don't understand, that you feel would benefit people to know more about, if you have a particular technology that you're not sure about, you can just contact us on either Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Podbean, any way possible, and get any kind of information to us on things we can improve on, things we did right, things we did wrong, future topics like we mentioned. That helps us and kind of would enable you guys to get better information. So as for us, all I can say is that if you're looking to find more discussions like this, this is not our main show. This is the deep dive show. So you can find us on our main show if you want to know a little bit more about what's going on in that week in technology, or just kind of general information on some of the goings on in the technology industry and current events. You can check us out on industry40.podbean.com. That's industry40 all spelled out. And you can see that if you're watching the stream at the top of our bar. You can check us out on Facebook. We share some articles and some bits of news there. You can reach out to us on Twitter. We're always down for a good Twitter discussion. And you can check us out on Instagram, where we will semi-infrequently upload random photos of cool tech and just some cool photos that we think you guys would find interesting.
Yeah.
So with that being said, this has been the inaugural episode of i4o Explains, and I hope you guys learned something today. So see you guys in the next one.